The Flesh-Eating Flora. The first night, everything seemed fine. I know that now. Hindsight is a hell of a thing. But at the time, as we set up camp in that quiet patch of forest, we all thought we had found the perfect spot. The trees were thick enough to provide shelter, but not so dense that we couldn't see the stars above. The fire crackled, sending warm orange sparks into the night air, and we laughed at stupid jokes and ate s'mores, our voices echoing into the emptiness of the woods. It was supposed to be a weekend of peace and relaxation, a break from our chaotic lives. There was me, Ethan, the one who organized the trip, the leader, if you will. Sarah, my girlfriend, who was excited about the trip, despite her usual aversion to the outdoors. Ben, my best friend, who had a tendency to make everything into a joke. Alice, Ben's girlfriend, who was more reserved but had an adventurous streak. And Dan, the quiet one, always the first to fall asleep by the fire. I should have noticed the strange quiet before it happened. The forest had this unnatural stillness to it, the kind of silence that presses down on your chest and makes you feel like you're being watched. But I ignored it. I chalked it up to nerves, being out here for the first time in months. But that night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my tent, tossing and turning, listening to the wind brushing through the trees. And then, something caught my attention, something I hadn't heard before. A faint rustling sound, but not from the usual forest creatures. This was different. It was like the earth itself was shifting. I sat up, straining to listen. The others were still asleep, their soft breaths rising and falling rhythmically. I pulled on my boots, careful not to wake anyone, and stepped outside. The cold air hit me instantly, and I pulled my jacket tighter around me as I walked a few feet away from the campfire. That's when I saw it. A massive shape, dark against the trees, barely visible in the dim light. It was a giant plant, something enormous, its leaves hanging low like curtains. The shape was like a Venus flytrap, but wrong. Its teeth were far too big, and the leaves weren't the bright green I was used to seeing. They were a sickly yellowish brown, slick with moisture, and there was a faint, pulsing glow emanating from them. I stepped forward, curiosity tugging at me. "Ethan," a whisper from behind. It was Sarah. I spun around, startled. "Did I wake you?" She shook her head. "No, I heard something. What are you looking at?" I pointed toward the strange plant. "It's huge. Looks like some kind of alien Venus flytrap or something. Have you seen anything like it?" Sarah stepped forward, squinting. "I don't like it," she said, her voice wary. "It's too quiet out here." And that's when I heard it, the rustling again. But this time it wasn't just one plant. There were others too, deeper in the forest. Their leaves shook in the windless air, almost as if they were alive. "I don't think we should stay out here tonight," Sarah said, gripping my arm. I nodded, already feeling the same unease. But before we could head back to the camp, there was a low growl, a deep, menacing sound, unlike anything we had ever heard in the woods before. It came from the plants, and it sent a chill down my spine. Something wasn't right. Something was watching us. We hurried back to the camp, our hearts pounding. The others were already awake, their faces illuminated by the flickering firelight. Ben was the first to speak. "What's going on? You guys look like you've seen a ghost." "There's something out there," I said, my voice shaking. "Big plants. More like monsters, really." "You've got to be kidding me," Ben laughed. "What, like some giant Venus flytrap or something?" "I'm serious, Ben," I said. "We're not staying here tonight." But Ben, of course, didn't take me seriously. "Relax, man, it's just a plant. Probably nothing. You've been reading too much science fiction." We argued for a bit, but Ben's bravado won out. We decided to stay. After all, it was just a plant, right? I should have trusted my gut. By morning, everything had changed. The air was thick with an odd, putrid smell that I hadn't noticed the night before. It was as though the earth itself was rotting. We started packing up the camp, but as I looked around, I noticed something that chilled me to the bone. The plants. They had grown overnight, their tendrils stretching farther than before, like they had multiplied. "I told you," I muttered, my voice barely audible. "What's the deal with these things?" Ben asked, finally noticing the plants. "They weren't here when we arrived." Alice was already backing away. "We need to get out of here. Now." But it was too late. Before anyone could react, the ground beneath us rumbled. The plants, the creatures, began to stir. Their tendrils, thick, stringy, and tough, shot out toward us with terrifying speed, wrapping around trees, rocks, and even the edges of our tents. A loud crack echoed through the clearing. One of the plants, massive and bloated, opened its mouth, revealing rows of enormous teeth that looked sharp enough to tear through bone. It was a trap, and we had walked right into it. "Run!" I screamed, grabbing Sarah's arm and pulling her toward the edge of the clearing. But the plants were faster than we anticipated. Their tendrils reached out, coiling around Mike's legs and yanking him back with terrifying force. "Mike!" Emily screamed, her voice cracking as she tried to reach him, but she was too late. The plant dragged him into its maw with a sickening crunch, his scream muffled by the grotesque plant body. The sound of flesh being torn apart filled the air, and I felt my stomach churn. I turned, trying to pull Sarah with me, but the tendrils had already reached for us. One coiled around my ankle, pulling me to the ground. I kicked and struggled, but the vine tightened, dragging me closer to the gaping maw of the creature. And then, another horrifying realization hit me. These weren't just plants, they were alive, and they were hunting. Emily and Sarah were next. They tried to run, but the tendrils were too fast. They were dragged into the air, their screams echoing as they disappeared into the plants' mouths. One by one, they were swallowed up by the carnivorous flora. I thought I was next. But then, in a surge of adrenaline, I managed to break free. The tendril loosened just enough for me to scramble backward. I ran as fast as I could, pushing through the underbrush, stumbling over rocks, and hearing the snap of branches behind me. I didn't look back. Eventually, I reached the edge of the forest, my breath ragged, my body covered in cuts and bruises. I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I ran until I reached the highway, my legs giving out beneath me as I collapsed onto the asphalt, gasping for air. A passing car stopped. A man got out, asking if I was okay. "Please," I begged, "help me. There." But before I could finish, a strange buzzing sound filled the air, a sharp, high-pitched noise like the sound of something alien. The car's headlights flickered, and the man suddenly stopped, his eyes glazing over as he turned toward the forest. I watched, horrified, as the plant's tendrils began reaching out beyond the trees, stretching toward the highway. And I realized the horrifying truth. The forest wasn't finished. The flesh-eating flora, it was coming for the rest of the world.